Hello, and welcome to the CDO Magazine interview series. I'm David Yehle with Acceldata, and we're partnering with CDO Magazine, MIT CDO IQ, and the International Society of Data Officers in a series of interviews. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Drew Smith, the Chief Data Officer of Little Caesars Enterprises and IIitch Companies. Drew, welcome to the interview series. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I think everybody, really struggles with the notion of data trust, and now you've got the real big moment in front of you. Do you trust your data? Do you trust your analytics? Maybe you've got predictive eased into that equation as well. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I read just recently in a Harvard Business Review article, that less than 5% of the data is trusted by the business. Now, I think we all know it's a little bit higher than that.
Yeah.
That's where they're at, right? Because they've been burned in the past, even though things are indeed getting better. But you touched on kind of two topics I want to just brush up against, which is the notion of data governance versus really the operational problem of data. And can you kind of, share with us your thoughts on the difference between governance and data ops?
Yeah, sure. I think I don't pretend that I have the only answer, but I do think I have a clear point of view on data governance, data management, data operations, right? And the last two maybe are more similar and near synonyms. Synonym is a flavor. Synonym means the same thing. They're nearly the same. So for me, data governance is really highly process and highly procedural driven and could almost be run without any technology. I mean, data governance, librarians had data governance since nearly the time in which we've had written word, right? You have an agreed system by which you know where something sits. You have agreed on the classification of that thing. You have agreed on the attributes of that thing. And you have agreed on the importance of that thing relative to your security. You know what I mean? So if you take the library example, you've got, code systems, you have rare books, which are locked behind doors and under glass, and then you have common books, right? But, you don't find, a Grisham novel in history because it's not history, right? It's novel. So these sort of principles could apply almost tech agnostic, and they could be theoretically applied in an analog world. And the reason I say it like that is then you have to go another layer and you have to say, okay, now where do we want to put those assets in a virtual world? And I mean that literally in a virtual world, right? And how do we want to make those virtual assets, which is data, available to different people in that virtual world, and for what purpose? And in architecting how that moves is an amazingly difficult thing to do. And it actually is certainly well beyond my capacity. And I feel fortunate to have a really good infrastructure, data management or data warehouse team, rather, that I rely upon for that. And I had that at IKEA too. I mean, I always said I loved my tech nerds because they just had talents that didn't have. But they won't know how to treat that data if we don't have those governance processes anchored in place first.
Yep, makes sense. And then, as you're in this job now, I assume about 4 or 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody were new, right? There still are some firms that are first bringing in their CDO, just like Little Caesars.
Yeah.
But what are realistic goals that you think you can accomplish? Sort of the first 6 months, maybe at a year, and maybe 2 years down the road.
Yeah, that's super good. Again, I think it's highly situational. So I'll talk about how I feel and how I hope it turns out to be true, because we're predicting the future, and we all know how difficult that is. I think it's a pretty big role, not to sort of like brag about it, but it's a pretty large role and it's a strategic role. So I think the ambitions within 6 months should be relatively mild, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I think success for me is if people don't think they've made a terrible decision by hiring me within 6 months. You know what I mean? They see that, oh, this person has brought something to the table, and maybe they don't even like it. Like, I don't know, but he's trying and he understands our business, or he's trying to understand our business. And I think he's going to get there. And I hear when I hear him talk, I hear he could help me address some of the concerns my colleagues and coworkers have. So to me, the first 6 months is relatively soft, and you could draw the line of like, if people don't think they've made a big mistake within the first 6 months, then that might be a sign of success.
Got it.
But if you go out longer, I think we spoke a little bit about it. You need to fix the things you and I have already spoken about, right? You need to stop having these arguments about whose data is right. You need to have, and I know people use one source of the truth. It's a little bit of a weird term, but let's agree that this key figure that we're calling, same store sales is accurate because we trust in the architecture and the data management, like we said. And going backwards, we have agreed to what same store means, and we've stopped even thinking about the fact that we've agreed because it's so known that we've agreed. So when we are +6 or we're +3 or whatever, we can start from a ground truth that is the fact. And then we can react to that based on, we had a goal of being +9 or we had a goal of being -1 or whatever it would be. But the faster you get people to sort of act on the data and you increase that clock speed, then that's a key metric for success. So are you making the easy decisions or the easy decisions even faster? And then the other thing, I think within 3 years, you should start to bring in, to be honest with you, from my point of view, you should start to bring in some of that complexity. The world is a little bit more complex sometimes than we like to think. We've got, in our world, we've got changes in the way that people get their food. 3 or 4 years ago, we might have only thought about pizza people who delivered or had carryout as competitors, but now everybody has delivery. So as these changes happen and the world gets more complex, data people can bring in data, in particular from the outside, to say, yeah, this is the view of our world from the inside. And when we add this view of our world from the outside, it gets a little bit more complicated. So let's talk about, with this new understanding, what additional questions might we have? And then as an analytics person within those 3 years, can you help to start to solve those additional questions? So I think you increase the clock speed and you increase the appetite, for my mind, for complexity.
Well, interesting perspective. I like it. Now, inevitably, right, you've got much more data flowing into your organization than you've ever had before. You've got point of sale data, store information data. You may even have, element about logistics, both inbound and your delivery mechanisms. And I'm staying away from, obviously, the side of the business where you manage sports franchises.
Right.
But are there new technologies that you are considering in your position, either at the analytical level, at the storage level, and maybe you could even touch upon the cloud?
Yeah. So why don't we take the last first, and if that's okay. So we are moving very quickly towards, nearly entirely on the cloud, which is a big change. And I think that they had started that a couple of years ago. And my boss, who's CIO, has done that at a couple other organizations. She's really experienced at this, which isn't that common, really, right? I mean, this has been around for a little while, but the amount of people who've successfully made migrations aren't that numerous. So I'm really happy that the folks in my team will have easier access to more things at greater scale, and they won't have constraints on compute and resource. So I think for us, the cloud is fairly fundamental, especially given the volume of data that we get on a daily basis from the many thousands of units that we have out there selling pizza. So I'm having trouble imagining, to be honest with you, how we could scale some of our analytics, especially if we do some predictions, which we do, without the cloud. At the same time, I think there will be a point where we might want to start to bring some stuff on-prem if we're doing it a lot, because I just don't know when you start to run over that cliff of cost. We haven't gotten there yet, but theoretically it must exist, right? Where you are better off re-migrating stuff back to an on-prem. So cloud for now for us and for the foreseeable future is a fantastic resource. And as I say, well managed by my infrastructure team that I really admire. So I'm good on cloud. One of the things with cloud that I'm not sure what the best approach is, and then it's just my natural cynicism, if I'm honest, is every cloud provider also has embedded tools. And their embedded tools are designed to drive you to use more cloud. But I know from sheer economics that they have an invested interest in using more cloud. So I'm not saying that they're bad people. I'm not saying Microsoft or Amazon or Google are bad people, but then I'm not saying that when they say they want to help me, they aren't being genuine and true, but I do recognize that we might have cross incentives. So I think when you use the cloud native tools, it's always something to think about. Is this a great route to trial something, which it often is? But is it a great route if you're going to create dependency on it? And that seems a little nervy to me. So those are my brain dump on cloud. When we talk about additional tools, I'll jump way over on the other side, which is to sort of say, I'm excited actually to be cracking on data governance again, which I also did at IKEA, because when we did this at IKEA 2016, 2017, I think that the tools for data governance that included sort of auto discovery and, auto deduping and stuff like that, they were still relatively kludgy. They were new. The concept was clear. It made perfect sense. I mean, AI and ML was sophisticated enough that these machines should have been able to figure all this stuff out. But I found it really an excessive promise relative to a subpar delivery. But I think that's changing. I think there are some new players in the game that are helping that. So I'm really excited to add data governance tooling to strong data governance routines and a commitment to data governance. So that's interesting.
Yep.
And data governance, I don't think is like the first place that people look for sexy new tools, but if you can automate things which aren't that fun to do and which people don't like, then we should do it. And then within the tech stack for analytics, we use a few things like Databricks and Kubernetes and things like this. And I think when we start to explore more analytics at scale, when we start to do that stuff that you spoke about, which is sort of strategic stuff, I think there's some tools out there that will help us with third-party data, or maybe third-party data is the wrong way to say it, external data. I think we'll need some support when we work more with unstructured data, because as you say, we have tons of data flowing in, but so far we're highly structured. And then the other thing is, I think that there's an interesting set of tools, usually in CDPs, which connect the analytics insight to, for example, outbound marketing activities. And those are now starting, I think, to mature as well, allowing marketing people to continue to be creative brand geniuses, brand ambassadors that they are, and not necessarily worry so much about the volume of work that they're doing to meet individual customers on the variety of social platforms that exist. So cloud's great. Looking for data governance. We'll start to better explore when we do more analytics what might be good, but for now, for us, Databricks, some of the tools in Azure are quite good for us. And then I think that the CDP thing will get interesting.
Yeah, no, great comments. Yeah, the third-party data is interesting, right? Because a lot of the psycho data that you've got to go buy from third-party firms or become critical. As you expand internationally, you'll even look at elements of economic indicators and even political unrest. I mean, it's a big decision now where you go in the world and where you expand. And a lot of factors come into that.
Yeah, and the data environment is so different. When we were, and it's both positive and negative. And when I was at IKEA and we did some work in China, WeChat data was just like awesome. I mean, from an analytics point of view, there were points where your, Western libertarian views, if not libertarian in literal terms, but was like, whoa, should you know that much about people? Like, but from a raw analytics point of view, from a divorced of any other point of view, that was awesome. And then, we go and we have big operations, for example, in Latin America here at Little Caesars, and it's fantastic. Our growth there is fantastic, but it's a not as digital a population. It's a more cash population. Yeah. So then when you're doing analytics there, you feel like you have like tripped back into like the 90s. Yeah. And it's just a cultural norm. It's just that there's fewer people that are banked. The banking infrastructure is different. But I like it because we start to think we still want to know those people. We want to support them in being, happy with their purchase. So how do we do it? I find it super interesting to sort of go, okay, well, we don't have the liberty of a loyalty program down there. We don't have the liberty of MasterCard analytics. So let's get creative. And I think that's fun too.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I mean, wandering the floor and, talking to people and even perhaps doing a survey,
exactly.
Right then and there on the spot versus an electronic survey, right? Which is almost unfathomable these days.
Yeah, or talking to other brands in the space, or talking to other, people, successful entrepreneurs down there. We are a franchise system. Sometimes folks own other franchisees, which is totally within the bounds of normal in our industry. But what do you do? What do you know? And I think it's a really great way to come, again, going back to that notion of humility, is like, just because it works here in the US doesn't mean anything. You get outside these countries' borders.
Well said. I want to move the pendulum the other way. So you talked about kind of the data governance and some of the newer tools that are getting better, thankfully for all of us. But the notion of data reliability to me is like the other direction the pendulum swings. So the notion of, moving data from point A to point B, of adding data quality easily and effectively, and things like data drift or schema drift. Can you comment on how you're keeping up with the reliability aspect of the data?
Yeah, to be honest, we're going to start to get out of the bounds of my knowledge here, especially at Little Caesars, in particular because we are new to the journey, right? So I recognize what you say from previous experience, and I recognize what you say from frustrations clients of mine had that were, at Fortune 50 companies when I was at IIA. And this is one of those ones. So you talked about data drift, you talked about, data replication and stuff like that. This is one of those ones where I love to kind of find my favorite geek, because there are techniques out there where I don't know them well enough, and I haven't, because they don't have a need for me within maybe the next 12 months. I haven't really, to be honest with you, put in the energy. But there are concepts like data virtualization and things like that. Even technical notions like data fabrics, where I hear them and I'm like, that sounds cool, and I would like to geek out on that, but I would rather meet the franchisees and really understand their world right now.
Yeah.
But I think for me, an obligation I accept of myself is that I can only do that for so long. Eventually, I'm going to have to read up on those. I'm going to have to start to find my data geek or my tech geek and sort of say, like, what do you know about this? Like, what makes you excited about it? That's one of my favorite questions. Why do you think this is cool? And invariably, they'll talk about the frustration that they have in a current technical system that we have. And then that's the bridge we can build. We'd be like, oh, okay, I understand. My data scientists have that problem. My data governance specialists have that problem. My business users have that problem. So, you think that could help? Well, tell me how it could help. And then where could we try it? What could go wrong? That kind of thing. So in those areas, I have to admit, I'm not so knowledgeable, but conceptually, I recognize I need to get a little smarter in the next, say, 6 months or so.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Drew, we cannot thank you enough for spending this hour with us. This was extremely insightful. You've drawn me closer into the challenges that CDOs, but I think the gains that CDOs can realistically accomplish. So thank you for your time today. For those of you that are listening, please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. We have some great ones out there, and I think many, many people will enjoy listening to. Thank you.
Thanks, David.